Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to episode 7 of Buha's Block. On today's episode, we are going to be previewing the Lakers' upcoming 6-game road trip. By the time you are watching/listening to this, I will likely be on a plane heading to Milwaukee. So I am filming this and recording this before the Lakers game against the Indiana Pacers on Sunday night, because after the game, I have to go to the post-game availabilities, then I have to transcribe, then I have to write, then I have to do my post-game reaction, and then in the morning, I have to finish packing and head to the airport. So I will be recording this before knowing the outcome of the Lakers game against the Pacers. So the Lakers will either be 39-32 by the time this comes out, 7 games above 500, which would be a season best mark for them, or they'll be 38-33. But without further ado, let's get into this road trip and why, to me, this is the 6-game stretch that is going to define the rest of the Lakers season. This is the stretch that will show us how serious this group is, their ability to focus and have resolve. There are some pretty easy games on this trip on paper, but at the same time, the Lakers have lost to some of these teams and played some of these teams pretty close in home games. And one thing that I think has gone under discussed with the Lakers season has been the home road splits, specifically how good this team has been at home in comparison with how bad they've been on the road. So they've had a long homestand here for the month of March. They've been in LA and the state of California for a majority of the month. But looking at it, going to this road trip, it's a 6-game trip. These 6 games are at Milwaukee, at Memphis, it's a back-to-back, then at Indiana, at Brooklyn, at Toronto, and at Washington, second night of a back-to-back there. Only 2 of those teams are above 500. That's the Bucks and the Pacers. So looking at LA's home splits, they are 26-12 at home, which is the 4th best record in the West at home, behind the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the Timberwolves, the top 3 teams in the West right now. But then on the road, they're just 12-20, which is the 11th best record in the West. It is the worst road record among the 10 teams in the playoffs and or play-in. All of the other 9 teams are 500 or better on the road. The Lakers are the only one under 500. And then it's also worse, oddly, than the Memphis Grizzlies, which I'm going to get into them because they are one of the teams. But Memphis has actually been really good on the road. They're almost 500 on the road. They're 16-20, and they've just been abysmal at home. But the point is, the Lakers have been a dominant home team, and they've been racking up wins at home this month. But on the road, they've not been very good. And again, one of the worst teams in the West on the road, and their ability to lock in and beat some of these lottery level teams will ultimately determine if they could stay at number 9, if they could potentially get into the number 8 conversation, or if they drop to number 10. So the Lakers have to take care of business on this road trip. And I'm about to give you a breakdown of each matchup and how the Lakers should fare in that particular game. So quickly, I'm going to give you a breakdown of the Lakers as things stand on Sunday afternoon. Again, this is before they play the Pacers. The Lakers are 38-32, 6-4 in their last 10. They are 15th in the league in offense, 4th in March, 16th on defense, 24th in March, 19th overall in net rating, 13th in March. They are 12-20 on the road again. Last 4 on the road, they lost to the Warriors and the Suns. They beat the Clippers and they lost to the Kings. So those are all good teams. Remember the Warriors game, they did not have LeBron James. Notable injuries, Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, and Christian Wood all remain out. So now on to the first game. Tuesday, March 26th, the Lakers play at Milwaukee against the Bucks. The Bucks are currently 45-25. They are 6-4 in their last 10. 5th in offense, 17th in defense, 9th in net rating. Season series is 1-0 Lakers. If you remember, D'Angelo Russell had his season high of 44 points against the Bucks. That was a game LeBron James missed. Chris Middleton also didn't play in that game. And then Spencer Dinwiddie got the game-winning block on Damian Lillard. The Bucks are 28-7 at home, which is tied for the 3rd best home record in the NBA. And last 4 at home, they beat the Clippers, the Sixers, the Suns, and the Nets. So a couple big wins there against the Clippers and the Suns. Notable injuries, the Bucks are finally healthy-ish. Chris Middleton is back, though he's been in and out of the lineup a little bit the last few games. And Giannis is also slightly banged up, though he's expected to be back soon and not miss too much time. So to me, this is the far and away the toughest game of the road trip. And the first game of a road trip can be the toughest just because you're now acclimating to being on the road, being in a different time zone for the Lakers in this case, going from the Pacific time zone to Central time zone. So this one to me is really going to set the tone for the trip. It's either the Lakers go into Milwaukee and complete the season sweep and start this trip off on the right foot, or maybe they have a close loss, but it's at least competitive and they show that they're locked in for this trip and they're going to be taking it as seriously as possible. And then there's the third scenario in which it's like a 10, 15, 20 point loss. They either get blown out or maybe they make like a late run to kind of make the final score closer. So this is definitely going to be the most challenging game. So the Bucks once again have the third best home record in the NBA. Chris Middleton is back and has been playing well. He's been shooting the ball efficiently. Only been a couple games, but he's looked pretty good. The Bucks are battling the Cavs right now for the number 2 seed in the East. So they have something to play for. This isn't a team that has their seeding locked in and can just afford to mail it in or rest guys. And in March, they have the 9th best offense and the 28th ranked defense. So a similar profile to the Lakers in terms of just being a more offensive minded group. And we saw that in that game without LeBron, where D'Lo was able to cook them continuously on the perimeter, targeting Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley, and even having his way with Patrick Beverley, and then with their more conservative drop coverages. I mean, that ultimately was what led to D'Lo hitting that floater. Brook Lopez is going to be in drop. And even Giannis, I mean, they'll mix things up with him a bit. But I think this is a matchup where the Lakers perimeter guys can exploit the Bucks. And they do have elite rim protection with Giannis and Brook Lopez on that back line. But in terms of shot creation at the 3-point line, shot creation out of pick and rolls, I think that's where you'll see guys like D'Lo and Austin and LeBron excel. And this should be one of those games where if the Lakers can hit their jumpers, and they have been hitting them lately. They've been one of the best offensive teams in the league for a couple months now. They've been one of the best 3-point shooting teams percentage-wise for several months now. And I think that's the way I see the Lakers winning this game. A couple more notes here. The Bucks are 6th in pace, so the Lakers are 5th in pace. So this is going to be should be an up-tempo game. I think you saw shades of that in their previous matchup. Bucks are shooting the ball. They've been a good 3-point shooting team all season, but they've been shooting the ball a little bit better lately. They're top 6 in attempts and percentage, and they are a high free throw, low turnover team. So in some ways, these teams have some similar strengths in terms of the Bucks want to draw fouls with Giannis and with Dame and with Chris Middleton, that they want to put pressure on the rim. They do take more threes, and they are a better 3-point shooting team overall than the Lakers, but they also don't have the perimeter size and defensive personnel that the Lakers have. Some of their traits, though, like in terms of just the rebounding and the dominating the paint, like that makes this an interesting chess match with some similarities there. To me, this is the most important game of the trip. If the Lakers can win this one and even drop one of the games to a lottery team, like every game does matter and every game counts the same technically in the standings, but this is a playoff level opponent. This is a team that looks like they could make a conference finals run. I think they would lose to Boston, but they could at least go far in the playoffs. And if the Lakers could come into their building and beat one of the best teams in the league and one of the best home teams in the league and start this trip with a bang, I think this just sends a message, and it adds another impressive win to their road ledger. Like there are several marquee wins for the Lakers this season on the road, be it at Phoenix early in the season, the recent one against the Clippers with the 4th quarter comeback, at Boston without LeBron and AD, at New York. And this would be another one. And again, I think this one matters more than, I think this one affects the perception of the trip, where if they lose to Milwaukee and they lose to, let's say, Indiana, and then just beat the 4 lottery teams, 4-2 is a great road trip regardless of the opponents, but I think they need to win at least one of the Milwaukee or Indiana ones to come out of it feeling better of like, we can actually beat good teams on the road. Because the other thing here is this is a test for how the Lakers are going to fare on the road with several tough road games coming up. Putting this trip aside, they close the season out in New Orleans, then potentially 9-10 game on the road, or they could be at home. But then if you win that, you play the 7 or 8 loser on the road, and then you start the playoffs on the road if you win that game. So like the Lakers need to show that they are a better road team than they've been up to this point in the season. And I think the Milwaukee game is the opportunity. And this is the most important game that to me will color how I view the trip overall. So on to game number 2, Wednesday, March 27th. It is a back-to-back at Memphis against the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are 24-47. They are 4-6 in their last 10. They are 30th in offense. Yes, you heard that correctly. 30th in offense. They are the worst team in the NBA offensively. 11th in defense, though. 25th in net rating. Season series is 1-1. If you remember, the Grizzlies beat the Lakers early in January. Part of that stretch where the Lakers were losing, they were on a 4-game losing streak. That was the nadir of the season, in my opinion. And it was just, it was bad. That was a bad loss. They got blown out in the fourth quarter. Desmond Bane went off. The Grizzlies had an outlier shooting performance, but the Lakers should not have lost that game. That was also a game that D'Angelo Russell missed. Home record, as I mentioned before, the Grizzlies are 8-27 at home and 16-20 on the road. So they're the rare team that's almost been twice as good on the road as they've been at home. It's a really weird home road split. Last 4 at home for them. They lost to the Hawks. They beat the Wizards, lost to the Hornets and the Thunder. So those are some pretty bad teams that they lost to, particularly the Hawks and the Hornets. Thunder, obviously, really good team, but they did beat the Wizards, another team the Lakers are playing on this trip. Notable injuries: Ja Morant and Marcus Smart are out. Desmond Bane is banged up. He's been in and out of the lineup. And their injury list does extend to basically half the roster. Some of the guys are just guys on the back end of the rotation that I'm not going to mention. But this is a team that has dealt with a lot of injuries this season. Now, I will say, I think this is sneakily the 3rd toughest game on the slate. So if I'm ranking from easiest to toughest, I think the toughest is Milwaukee. I think the 2nd toughest is Indiana. And I actually think the 3rd toughest is going to be Memphis. So the Grizzlies start 3 guys 6'9" or above, and Jaren Jackson Jr., Santi Aldama, and Gigi Jackson. And the Lakers should still have the physicality advantage with AD, LeBron, and Rui in comparison to that front court. That front court's a little bit longer. The Lakers are a little bit beefier, and I think just overall more athletic and forceful and physical. But the Grizzlies hit the offensive glass hard, and they are still, even with this limited group, they have been a pretty good defensive team. So on paper, this is going to be a matchup where it gets a little ugly. And it's a game that's going to be played in the mud, in the trenches. And similar to the Lakers' recent win over the Sixers, like that's the type of game that the Grizzlies are going to try to create and just muck things up. And the Lakers have to be careful with that and just make sure that they're ready for the Grizzlies' level of physicality overall as a group. This is just a tough, hard-nosed team that plays fundamental basketball, even with their limited shot creation and offensive generators currently available and just on this roster in general. They can't score. They don't have a lot of shot creation, but they are top 10 in the NBA in 3-point attempts and percentage in March. So that is something of note. And they did burn the Lakers in that second matchup beyond the arc. They lead the league in free throw attempts in March. So again, that's a team that is drawing fouls. They are playing downhill and trying to get to the rim, even with limited ISO and like post-up shot creation. They're 5th in the league in both steals and blocks. So they are, from a defensive perspective, a team that is going to make plays and generate fast break opportunities, second chance opportunities, protect the rim. But the flip side is they are a high turnover team, which allows opponents to get out in transition. And for the Lakers, we know if they can get to like 20 plus fast break points, they typically win those types of games. So this one, to me, to be clear, it should be a Lakers win. They should start this road trip at least 1-1, winning this game. But when I'm looking at Memphis compared to Brooklyn, compared to Toronto, compared to Washington, I think Memphis is sneakily the one that could give the Lakers the most trouble, just because of they're a tough, hard-nosed, big, defensive-minded group. They do have some guys who can get hot beyond the arc. Now, again, they're a high turnover team, and they don't have the Ja Morant in the lineup. And we've seen against the Lakers when Ja has been out, Memphis has really struggled. And the big X factor here could just end up being, is Desmond Bane available or not? Like if Desmond Bane is out, I just don't think they have enough offensively. But with the way that he's been playing, Jaren Jackson Jr. has been playing better lately. Gigi Jackson has been one of the stories of the season, just kind of coming out of nowhere and playing at a very high level as a rookie. So I think for the Lakers, this is going to be this has the makings of a trap game. Again, second night of a back-to-back against a team that on paper is one of the worst in the league, but has been playing slightly better lately, has had some close games against good teams. And I think overall has the profile that could give the Lakers some trouble. Then we go to Friday, March 29th. That is the third game of the trip against the Indiana Pacers. For the third time, I'm recording this before the Lakers play the Pacers, so I don't know the outcome of tonight's game. But Pacers currently entering tonight's game are 40-31, 6-4 in their last 10. Second in the league in offense, 25th in defense, and 13th in net rating overall. Season series is 1-0 in favor of the Lakers. Of course, they won the in-season tournament championship against the Pacers, but that game technically does not count on either team's schedule. That was the 83rd game of the regular season for both teams. So season series is technically 0-0, even though the Lakers won that game. Pacers are 21-15 at home, which is the second best home record among these six teams. They do profile as the second best team in this group by a wide margin. Last four at home, they lost to the Wolves and the Bulls. They beat the Nets and they lost to the Cavs. Notable injuries, Benedict Mathurin is the only Pacers rotation guy who is out right now. This is the second toughest game of the trip. Again, like Milwaukee, if we're tiering it, it's like Milwaukee's tier 1, Indiana's tier 2, and then I wouldn't even put any of the remaining teams in like tier 3 or necessarily even tier 4. They're probably more like tier 5 teams. Maybe you could argue Brooklyn is like a tier 4 team, but all those teams are very beatable. But Milwaukee and Indiana are two of the first 3 games and the 2 toughest games. But the Lakers could realistically start this trip 1-2, and all of a sudden it starts to look a little dicey in terms of their ability to move up to number 8 and hold off the Warriors for that number 9 spot. So this is a swing game, in my opinion, because again, I think the Lakers probably start 1-1. I think they probably lose to Milwaukee, beat Memphis. Could go the other way though. And either way, like I think the Lakers are probably 1-1 entering the Indiana game. And then this is the game that really shows, this is another game where it's like, is this another marquee win for the Lakers on the road, or is this another marquee loss? And now they're 2-1 or 1-2. And we're starting to have some question marks with this group and their ability to win high stakes road games. The Pacers have been playing well overall. They've beaten the Warriors, Thunder, Magic, and Mavericks over the past few weeks. They're a different team since facing the Lakers in December for the in-season tournament championship. They added Pascal Siakam, which gave them a second all-star level player, a better number 2 option. They're bigger now. They're better defensively. They're better in terms of defensive rebounding. So Pascal Siakam has been one of the additions of the season, if not the best addition of the season. I think you can make that case. And Indiana has still hovered around that like 6-7 seed mark for most of the year. But Pascal Siakam has given them a legit all-star running mate next to Tyrese Haliburton. Speaking of Tyrese Haliburton, he came back early from a hamstring injury. He's admitted that that was in part due to the 65 game rule and him wanting to qualify for an All-NBA team and get the extra money that he will have coming to him if he does qualify for the Supermax. So he, if you look at his recent numbers, he has not been, I mean, he's starting to look more like himself, but he has not been playing at the level he was playing at earlier in the season, particularly as a 3-point shooter. He has not been at the same caliber of guy, but he is starting to resemble himself more and more just in time for the Lakers to come into town. And we'll see Sunday night how the Lakers handle him in the in-season tournament game. They were blitzing him. They were being very aggressive. They were trying to make the Pacers play 4-on-3, make Tyrese give the ball up and just have anybody else beat them on this group. And I think it's a little bit harder to do that with Pascal Siakam on this team. But I think the Lakers, if they can be aggressive and if Cam Reddish is still able to go by then and they have closer to a full rotation, I still expect Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, and Christian Wood to all be out by that point. But if everyone else is healthy and available, I think the Lakers can get creative and aggressive with their schemes against the Pacers once again. To be clear, though, this is going to be an offensive battle. These are two of the best offensive teams in the league, which is funny because the Lakers are one of the best defensive teams in the league when these two teams last played, and one of the worst offensive teams in the league. But the Pacers are second in pace. The Lakers are fifth. The Pacers lead the league in points in the paint per 100 possessions. Lakers are third. The Pacers are fifth in points off turnovers. They are fourth in fast break points. Lakers are third. So there are a lot of similarities here in terms of playing with pace, playing at the rim, getting out in transition. They're top 10 in both steals and blocks. They don't profile quite as well as the Grizzlies on that end in terms of just being defensive playmakers, but they have a guy in Miles Turner who's one of the best shot blockers in the league, and they play passing lanes well. They're also a low turnover team, which doesn't bode well for the Lakers because they're also a low turnover generating team. Pacers haven't shot the three as well lately, but they are above average in both 3-point attempts and percentage. They're rebounding the ball better this month and better since Pascal Siakam has been in the lineup, but they're still not a good defensive rebounding team or a rebounding team overall, as they are 29th in opponent points in the paint. And they're also one of the bottom teams in terms of second chance points. So I look at this game as a chance for the Lakers. When AD plays a smaller front line, he could dominate them. And Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam are both big guys, right? Like Pascal is 6'10", Miles Turner is about 6'11". They're both long, they're both athletic, but Anthony Davis should have his way in this matchup. This should be a matchup where he has 5+ offensive rebounds, 15+ rebounds overall. The Lakers are feeding him in the post. They're feeding him on pick and rolls. They're feeding him on ISOs. And similar to the Sixers and the Wizards and the Hawks and the Timberwolves, some of these recent games where AD has been able to feast inside, and even similar to the in-season tournament championship, one of the great games that doesn't count technically in a box score when AD dropped 40 and 20 on this Pacers team. I think that's got to be the formula here, is just living at the paint, living at the rim, getting these guys in foul trouble. If you can get Miles Turner in foul trouble, similar to the in-season tournament championship game, this team is much worse defensively. And even with him on the floor, they're not great defensively. But the drop-off between him and the rest of the group in terms of rim protection and just being a rim deterrent is significant. So the formula here is simple. Be aggressive against Tyrese Halliburton. Try and contain this group, try and make other guys make plays and burn you. And then offensively, spam the paint, spam LeBron pick and rolls, spam trying to get him downhill, spam AD. And the Lakers should win this game if they can do that. Again, we'll have a better idea based on how Sunday night's game goes. The Pacers are a tough team, and on paper, this is probably a game the Lakers should lose, given how good Indiana's been at home and how bad the Lakers have been on the road. But I think the Lakers have a shot, and the Pacers profile as one of those front lines that the Lakers can overwhelm, particularly with LeBron and AD. On to game number 4 on Sunday, March 31st at the Brooklyn Nets. Lakers are going to be looking for some revenge after Brooklyn came into LA and won that game in quite embarrassing fashion. It wasn't the Lakers' worst loss of the season. I still think it was probably the back-to-back Kings losses, but one of the worst losses of the season. It's in that conversation. But let's run through the Nets here. So they're 26-45. They're 2-8 in their last 10. 22nd in offense, 20th in defense, 22nd in net rating. Season series is 1-0 Brooklyn. Home record is 16-19, so they are below 500 at home. Last 4 at home, they beat the Hawks, lost to the Grizzlies, beat the Sixers, and lost to the Pelicans. So they've been like Hawks and Sixers aren't great teams, but this Nets team is frisky, and I would put them as, again, if I'm ranking these, Milwaukee 1, Indiana 2, Memphis 3. I put Brooklyn at number 4 in terms of like 4th toughest opponent, and I guess technically 3rd easiest. The only injury with them is Ben Simmons. And look, this team is frisky. They have played some good teams recently and played them well. They have a couple close recent losses to the Bucks and the Knicks. So a loss is a loss, but I think this Nets team they already beat the Lakers earlier in the season, and they have a pretty similar roster. They did lose Spencer Dinwiddie, added Dennis Schroeder. Honestly, with the way that Spencer was playing towards the end of his Nets tenure, might be an upgrade in terms of adding Dennis. And he's been playing fairly well for them, all things considered. And it brings an interesting subplot here is the D'Lo-Dennis beef ever since D'Lo's story in ESPN, where he took a subtle shot or maybe a not so subtle shot at Dennis, and Dennis responded when asked about it by the Nets media, And Dennis, to me, is a guy who is he's going to take this personally. He's going to pick D'Lo up 94 feet. He's going to try and strip him. They'll probably have some sort of back and forth in terms of like a verbal heated moment. I would not be surprised if it even turned physical at some point, or the steps towards turning physical. So I think that's going to be kind of a spicy subplot here, is just what happens with Dennis and D'Lo. Does Dennis just put it behind him and be the bigger guy, or is he going to try and get his lick back and do something in the game toward D'Lo? As he called him immature, he clearly was not happy with the situation. Now, bad news for the Lakers is Cam Thomas is starting now. He's averaging 24.9 points per game in March. And if you remember, he absolutely shredded the Lakers perimeter defense in that loss in January. Like, he was making some ridiculous shots. I forgot if he started something like 6 for 6, 7 for 7 in that game. But he is the type of wild chucker that when he's hot, it's basically impossible to stop. And he also has a level of quickness and athleticism where it's kind of similar to a guy like a Malik Monk or a guy like a Jordan Poole when he's feeling it, where it's difficult to stop because some of the shots that Cam Thomas is taking are shots you want him to take. He's just really good at making them. So that's like, if I look at the way the Lakers lose this game, it's probably a Cam Thomas like 35-40 piece. But the Nets are a bad rebounding team. They are 22nd in opponent second chance points, 25th in rebound percentage in March. They're also a high turnover team. So unlike the Pacers, who take care of the ball, the Nets are all over the place with it. And that's because they don't have a traditional floor general, a traditional point guard. 25th in opponent fast break points, which fares well for the Lakers. And overall, the reason why I think this is potentially a more difficult matchup than it would appear to be on paper is because this Brooklyn team has so much firepower on the perimeter. They have so much shooting, so much athleticism, quickness, speed. Like, those are the types of guys that give the Lakers problems. I think that was part of the reason why the Lakers struggled in that Philly game, was looking at guys like a Tyrese Maxey or a Kelly Oubre, or even a guy like Tobias Harris, who has a bit of a quickness advantage against like Rui or a LeBron when he's not as engaged defensively. Like, the Nets have a lot of those guys, and be it Cam Thomas, Lonnie Walker off the bench, Dennis, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton has been playing much better overall. So like, this Nets team doesn't have that one guy who I think is just going to absolutely take over a game. They don't have a Dame, a Giannis, a Tyrese Halliburton, but Mikal Bridges is a really good player. Cam Thomas has killed the Lakers before. This is a pesky young team that has some athletes and some athleticism that I think could give the Lakers some problem on the perimeters. So I think the Lakers should win all the games against lottery teams, but similar to Memphis, this is one that I think is sneakily more difficult than it appears. And this is one the Lakers could potentially lose if they're not focused. We're almost at the end of the road trip. Now we go to Toronto, where the Lakers play the Raptors on Tuesday, April 2nd, the front end of the second back-to-back on this trip. The Raptors are 23-48, 0-10 in their last 10 games. You heard that correctly. They are currently on a 10-game losing streak. Offensively, they're 24th, defensively 24th, and net rating 24th. So they've been a bottom 7 in offense, defense, and overall. Season series is 1-0 Lakers, but remember that was a very close game when they played in January. That was amid the Lakers up and down stretch in January. Home record 13-22 for the Raptors. Last 4 at home, they lost to the Pelicans, the Magic, the Kings, and the Thunder. 3 of those losses were by 20 plus. So they've been getting blown out lately. And the reason for that is because Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, Chris Boucher, RJ Barrett, who is unfortunately away from the team due to his brother's death, which is just a tragic situation, and Emmanuel Quickley are all out. So you're out your best player in Scotty Barnes and multiple starters, 4 of your top 5 guys or so. So this team has been absolutely decimated. There's clearly an element of them tanking and trying to keep their pick and trying to get the best pick possible. So this is like kind of a G League level team right now. This is the easiest game of the trip on paper. Again, 10-game losing streak. 7 of those games have been by double digits. They're missing several key players. In March, they are 30th in offense, 26th in defense, and 30th in net rating. So they've been the worst team in the league for the past few weeks. and are just getting absolutely waxed on a nightly basis. They are first in the league in pace and first in the league in fast break points. So this is a team that's going to push the ball at every turn, push the ball after makes, push the ball after misses. And the Lakers are going to have to keep up with their athletes and just their style of play. They're fourth in the league in points in the paint, but that's dropped to 17th in March. They can't rebound. That's just like one of the trends of the strip is the Lakers are playing a bunch of undersized, smaller teams that can't rebound, with the exception of Milwaukee. All these other teams are subpar. Indiana, Memphis is actually solid on the glass, but Memphis and Milwaukee are the two exceptions. Indiana, Brooklyn, Toronto, and Washington are all poor rebounding teams and teams that the Lakers should dominate points in the paint, dominate offensive rebounds. Again, Pacers are such a good offensive team that points in the paint will probably be close in that one. But the Lakers, I forgot what they had. They had like 82 points in that game. Still their season high, though technically it didn't count. Might have even been like 88. But they absolutely obliterated the Pacers in the paint. Lakers should be winning points in the paint, second chance, offensive rebounds, all that stuff against these smaller front lines. I don't want to spend too much time on this matchup. I think that, given it could change in terms of who's available, and if Scotty Barnes or Jakob Poeltl, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, like if a couple of those guys or multiple of those guys come back, like this could be a tougher game. But on paper, this has been the worst team in the league for several weeks now. This is a game the Lakers should not only win, but win in convincing fashion. And this would be the most disappointing loss by far on the trip if they end up losing this one. But I think they should be heavy favorites, and I think they should win it. And finally, the last game on the trip, Wednesday, April 3rd at the Washington Wizards. Washington is 13-58. They are 4-6 in their last 10, 25th in offense, 30th in defense. Yes, worst defense in the league, as the Lakers saw in their recent matchup. 29th in net rating. Season series is 1-0 Lakers. Home record is 6-28 for the Wizards. They also are oddly better on the road than at home. Last four at home, lost to Boston and Houston. They were blown out in both of those games. But they did beat Sacramento and Toronto. The Sacramento one is obviously notable, just given Sacramento how important their games are right now and how they're trying to jostle with the rest of the West. So that was a big win for Washington, and a clear indication that if the Lakers don't take them seriously, they can easily lose this game. Notable injuries right now are Tyus Jones, Landry Shamet, and Bilal Coulibaly. This is the second easiest game on the trip behind the Raptors, but the Wizards do have some legitimate firepower with Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole, Corey Kispert, and Deni Avdija. They already played the Lakers close in a game in LA that went to overtime, and they profile somewhat similarly to the Raptors. They're third in pace in March, fifth in points in the paint overall, ninth in March. They can't rebound, 30th in opponent second chance points. They're 12th in fast break points in March, 9th in points off turnovers. So they are generating, like they play very fast. They like to get out in transition. They like to get to the rim, 28th in opponent points in the paint. So again, bad at protecting the paint, bad at protecting the rim. Toronto and Washington are very similar in terms of their weaknesses. They're bad on the glass. They're bad at protecting the rim, just bad defensively overall. But then offensively, they're going to play fast. They're going to try and score on you after your makes. And if you don't take them seriously, they have not the Raptors. They just don't have enough talent or enough healthy and available talent right now. But the Wizards do. And if the Lakers aren't careful, again, they just beat the Kings at home. They've played the Lakers really close. And this is a game that the Lakers could lose if they don't take them seriously enough. And as we've seen sometimes on the road, the Lakers just don't have the requisite level of effort and energy and focus. And when they don't have that, they tend to lose. This is another one where I don't want to spend too much time on it because I think this is a game the Lakers should win and should win convincingly given how they've been playing. But I want to close this out with what are realistic expectations for this trip. Again, as I laid out on paper, this is a relatively easy trip. They're only playing two teams above 500. This is a chance for the Lakers to pad their road record and remain in the hunt for the number 8 seed if Sacramento or Dallas or Phoenix can drop a couple games over the next week and a half. I think the Lakers are going to go 4-2 on this trip. I expect them to lose either or both of the Milwaukee and Indiana games, and then either take care of business in the other 4 games or maybe they split those 2 games and then lose a game to like a Memphis or a Brooklyn. But I think 4-2 is a reasonable and realistic expectation for this trip. 5-1 or 6-0 would be great, and I think that puts you potentially in the mix to move up into number 8. It's going to take a stretch like that for the Lakers to have any chance of ascending in the standings. And again, that would keep them in the mix with Phoenix and Sacramento and Dallas if any of those teams lose a game or 2. Again, I think Milwaukee and Indiana are just going to be 2 really tough games for them based on how those 2 teams have played at home, based on how the Lakers have played on the road. I think those are 2 likely losses. And then the other 4 should be wins. And then the flip side is 3-3 or worse is a disaster given the caliber of opponent on this trip. And again, there are a couple back-to-backs that makes the Memphis and Washington games harder than they appear on paper, just based on those 2 teams' statistical profiles and recent results. But for the Lakers, this is their defining stretch of the season. Are you going to go on the road and beat these lottery teams and show a level of focus and effort and engagement that you haven't been able to display consistently on the road up to this point in the season? Or are you going to go on the road and you're going to shrink and you're going to collapse and you're not going to live up to the moment? I think this 6-game stretch is really going to tell us a lot about the Lakers, about their ability to win on the road, about their ability to handle pressure, and about the direction of their season as it starts to wind down. I know there's more games after this one. They get another shot to beat Memphis, and then they close out in New Orleans. They have a couple of home games against the Cavs and the Warriors, but this stretch is critical to me, and I think the Lakers are going to show us how serious they are about going on a run in mid-April. But that'll do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your podcast platform of choice, I'll be back on Tuesday night with a post-game reaction to the Lakers game against the Bucks. That'll be up Tuesday night on YouTube and Wednesday morning on audio platforms. I'll talk to you then.